And know that I'm not immune to these things either. Even though I talk about it each week, even though this is my highest passion to dive into these topics, I'm human and I'm not immune to my mind going crazy and falling out of the present moment and, just having anxieties and worries about the future. I think every single one of us can relate to that, and that can be just a lot sometimes, like trying to escape those stories in your mind that just want to go again and again and again. That's the crazy thing. Your mind thinks if it just thinks about it again and again and again, like a record on repeat, that you'll get to some kind of solution. And that's not where you find solutions, by thinking about something over and over and over again. You find true solutions always, in my case and in my experience, by going within and connecting to your internal guidance and finding the wisdom there.
Welcome to Alignment Adventures. This is a podcast where we explore what it means to live a fulfilling, aligning, and present life. I'm your host, Lindsay Tanner, and I am so grateful that you are here.
Hello, my loves, and welcome back to another episode of Alignment Adventures. As always, I'm so grateful that you are here with me this week, that you chose to hit play on this episode, and that you're along with me on this alignment journey, and that you are choosing to prioritize your alignment. I just want to take time to celebrate you for making that choice, because not everyone is on that path, and that's okay. But taking this path and, working towards finding your own alignment is not always easy. It comes with ups and downs. So I just want to applaud you and celebrate you for being on this journey along with me, because you are with me. Even if you don't feel like you're with me here physically, I consider you all my friends and my loves and my community and my people that just get the things that we talk about on here. You just get it. You know what I mean? And I hope you get that feel that I've mentioned before, like we're just sitting at a cute coffee shop with our warm coffee. I've got my coffee right here, having these deep chats. So when it comes to what I want to talk about this week, I always draw an inspiration from my own personal life, and I hope it's useful for you all. As you guys know, or may not know, if you need to know what I'm talking about, go check out episode 129. But we are making a pretty major life shift coming up in the next month. We are quitting our jobs. We are going back to the Midwest to hang out with family for a bit. And then we are hitting the road in our RV and traveling full time in an RV for at least 6 months. I imagine it would be longer than that, but at least 6 months. So pretty major shifts over here. And even though this is something that I've been manifesting for so long, man, mind stories have been coming up, major mind stories, and even like physical ailments have been coming up. And I kind of mentioned that last week. And I find it so interesting because I felt almost the exact same feeling when it comes to what I'm feeling in my body, and also the mind stories when I made one of my first major life decisions, which was to move to Arizona 6 years ago. So it's interesting how it's almost lining up in terms of like time of the year, the exact same time of the year we made this decision and we were on this path. It's just interesting how the synchronicities happen. But I find this to be the case for myself, and I'm wondering if you guys relate. Anytime you're making a huge life decision, or you just have some huge unknowns coming up, or maybe you've decided to go after something, or you're wanting to pursue something, or whatever it may be. It could even like deciding to start a family. I remember that was a huge time of mind stories and uncertainty, and my mind just going crazy because there's a lot of waiting with that, right? Any scenario can apply to this, but anytime you're making just like huge life shifts, our mind goes a little wacko. Because as we've talked about, our mind loves to know what's going on. It wants certainty. It wants a plan. It wants to know what's going to happen. And as cool as we think it would be to know exactly what's going to happen in the future, I have a theory that if we really did know what was going to happen, we'd actually be bored and be like, I wish I didn't know. So if you're in that boat with me, if your mind is just wanting to know the future, it's wanting to know what's going to happen, I have so much compassion, so much sympathy for you guys. And know that I'm not immune to these things either. Even though I talk about it each week, even though this is my highest passion to dive into these topics, I'm human and I'm not immune to my mind going crazy and falling out of the present moment and, just having anxieties and worries about the future. I think every single one of us can relate to that. And that can be just a lot sometimes, like trying to escape those stories in your mind that just want to go again and again and again. That's the crazy thing. Your mind thinks if it just thinks about it again and again and again, like a record on repeat, that you'll get to some kind of solution. And that's not where you find solutions, by thinking about something over and over and over again. You find true solutions always, in my case and in my experience, by going within and connecting to your internal guidance and finding the wisdom there. So just know that even in this time and space, I have times where I get caught up in my mind and I forget to connect to my internal guidance, even though I know it is always there. And that's why I've been going back, and every once in a while I feel called to go back and listen to podcast episodes on alignment adventures. I don't listen to podcasts as frequently as I used to anymore. Like I used to consume like other people's podcasts so much, and I've really been feeling called to like not have as much outside noise in my internal awareness. But with that being said, I do listen to a few other podcasts here and there. But what I've really been enjoying is going back and listening to these episodes, because I go back and I'm like, wow, I've already forgot that lesson. I want to beat myself up about it. And, I get frustrated with that sometimes, if I'm being really open and honest. Like, when does this actually sink in? Like, I know all these things, but when does it actually sink in? And guys, it just takes time. It just takes practice. And we fall out of alignment. We fall out of the present moment. We all do it. We don't need to beat ourselves up. I do beat myself up. So if you're beating yourself up, let's join hands energetically and make promises to ourselves that we're not going to beat ourselves up when we do that. When we have mind stories going on repeat, we all fall into those traps, and it's okay. I truly feel like that is the first step, is just acceptance and awareness. Just being like, okay, I know I have the story going on repeat. I know that I have this anxiety that will not get out of my brain. I know that I keep beating myself up about falling out of the present moment, or having this thought or this repeated pattern that keeps sabotaging me, or whatever it may be. First step is just awareness and acceptance. And I'm right there with you. I'm there holding your hand. I'm right there with you. So I just want to share some things that have been helping me in this time and space, dealing with major uncertainty, dealing with mind stories coming up, and always bringing myself back to the present moment, because I know that's where my true joy and fulfillment and alignment comes from, when I'm in the present moment. And I was just listening to one of my favorite episodes on alignment adventures. I can't remember what number it is, but it's with Karen Hager. Let me look it up really quickly. Episode 120, Following Your Soul's Path with Karen Hager. That was just one of my favorite conversations. I've loved all my conversations on here, but that one, you can just tell in the interview, I'm speechless after everything she says, because it just resonates so well. But one thing that we talked about on there was how we can't be in the present moment all the time. We can't be in alignment all the time, and that's okay. And I think going back to acceptance, let's accept that fact. Let's truly accept that fact that we're not always going to be in the present moment. We're not always going to be in alignment, at least in this time and space. Who knows? Maybe humans will evolve to be better at that. But from what I know now in my experience, I'm not always going to be in alignment in the present moment, and that's okay. That's okay. But a really simple way to bring me back to this moment is my breath. I love the quote that I said on there, and I think I'm going to make a little reel out of it. That's another mind story. I'm I should be on social media more. I should be posting more. I should be doing this, blah, 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 blah. All the shoulds. You know how I feel about should. But the thing that I said on this podcast was that the present moment is just one breath away. Even though It's so easy to fall out of alignment in the present moment. It is incredibly simple to get back in it. Slowing down and breathing. Slowing down and breathing. That's all it takes. And even if it's just for a moment, you can feel those clouds start to part. You can feel that worry start to melt away a little bit, and you find this inner stillness, this inner peace. And even if it's just for a moment, you can taste it, you can feel it, and you know it's there. And we can get mad because it's a fleeting feeling, right? But you can just keep coming back again and again and again. And that is why, no matter what's going on in my life, I try to keep these things certain. Stretching at night and in the morning, I haven't been as good as stretching in the morning because sometimes I just don't give myself enough time. But stretching at night before I go to bed, meditating first thing in the morning while I'm pumping, because I have to do that, which I'm actually starting to stop pumping. So that'll give me more time in the morning, which will be nice. And I can, maybe have a deeper meditation because I won't be hooked up to my pumping machine. But stretching and meditating, when I keep those pillars in my day, they just help ground me and really set me up to find my center again more easily. Like, again, I say this all the time, it's just a muscle. And the more we do it, the more automatic that muscle can be. Like when you get anxious, you can remember, because it's hard when you're in the deepness of anxiety. And I don't even feel like I have it on a level that some people have it. Like I know some people have serious anxiety disorders, and I have so much compassion and sympathy and empathy and all the things for those people. So much love for those people. Sending it their way. I hope they can feel it. But when you're in the deepness of worry, or like a mind story that's just stringing you along and it's got all these possibilities of things that could go wrong, and it's like, well, Lindsay, what about this? What about this? When you're deep in that, you just forget, like, oh yeah, I can breathe. I can focus on my breath, and that kind of just quiets that voice a little bit. So that's always my reminder to you. And as simple and as cliche and as repeated as it may sound, your breath is the most powerful thing that you have. You are just one breath away from the present moment. Another reminder that I needed from that podcast episode with Karen Hager, which I am writing myself a note right now. I need to schedule my intuitive reading with her. I've been wanting to do that, and I just keep putting it off. So anything that you've been putting off, go write it down to go do it later. Follow that aligned action. We can self-sabotage our aligned action sometimes. But another thing that she said was that you're always okay. You're always okay, and there's nothing wrong with you. Another guest said that as well. I think Ian Haycroft. Just love going back and listening to our wonderful guests we've had on here. But it's so true. And I think that can be the downfall of this section of the internet, or this section of, I guess you can call it self-help. I don't consider myself a self-help podcast. I think that's the category I'm under. I would say it's more like spirituality and just like remembering your truth and, living your best life, all those things. But I think a shadow side of this work is that we can think that there's always something wrong with us. Like, I do think we are continually evolving. Yes, I do believe that. But the other side of that coin is that sometimes we always think that there's something wrong with us, when in fact there's nothing wrong with us. We're just at different stages of our evolution. And yes, we change moment to moment, day to day. And who you were yesterday isn't wrong or right compared to who you are today. It's just a different version of you. But there's nothing wrong with you. There's nothing wrong with you. And I think practicing that true self-love, self-acceptance, self-compassion is always a beautiful place to start when it comes to anxieties and mind stories and dealing with the unknown. It's just like loving yourself through it. Loving yourself through the hard times, through the unalignment, is always just a beautiful way to navigate those things that can be truly hard on our souls, on our awareness, on our humanness. It can be hard, but just know there is nothing wrong with you. ever, ever, ever. And we forget those things sometimes. And I think that's where a lot of the suffering comes from, is we just get caught up in those mind stories. We start to believe them. Remember, not every thought we have is the truth. And that's such a powerful thing to remember. So another thing I'm feeling called to do this week is film a yoga flow / meditation for dealing with anxious thoughts. So that should be going up Thursday of this week. So it will already be up before this podcast is released. So if you're feeling called to go and check that out, go check it out. That's something that helps me when I'm anxious, is movement. Not only breathing, but also you just got to move sometimes. And this also makes me think back to an episode I recorded earlier this year. Sometimes anxiousness is just a crack away from creative energy. So maybe you're blocking some kind of creativity you want to let out, and that is what's making you so anxious. I mean, there's many reasons we can be anxious or have anxious thoughts, but that can definitely be one of them, along with not being present. Like, a lot of anxious thoughts come from worrying about the past or worrying about the future, which, girl, boy, whoever's listening, I am right there with you. We have so many unknowns with this major life choice, which it's our choice, right? Like, no one's forcing us to go and do this thing. We are choosing this path, but along with this path, there's so many unknowns, and there's so much beauty in the unknown. I love being surprised by life, but my mind is still a mind at its core, and it wants to know, like, the plan for my life, and it wants to know when things are going to happen. And that's just not important for me to know. That's just not my business right now. Like, that's none of my business right now to know what my future holds. My business right now is living in this present moment, for connecting with my true nature, with my soul, and remembering that I'm okay, and that there is nothing wrong with me, and that I am not my anxious thoughts. I am not my mind stories. I am a pure, divine soul connected to all that is. I am love. And so are every single one of you. As I say that, I get chills. I hope you guys get feeling that too. But, like, we just forget our true nature sometimes, and we think we are our thoughts, and we're not our thoughts. Being human, man, it's a wild ride. Earth School, another thing Karen talked about in that episode. Earth School is a wild, wild ride. And I think just looking at my life like school, and then I'm just learning these lessons. I came here to learn these certain things. And the frustrating part is we don't remember what we came here to learn, but that's okay, because we just are on this path. And that's something also I've been thinking about recently, is just like, man, these are the times we're going to look back on and be like, wow, that was crazy, but it was also really fun. And, like, I can't believe I got through that, or I can't believe I did that. Like, we can have such nostalgia about the past. I know my brain can do that a lot. I want to remember the past, like even a year ago when I was pregnant with Arlo and doing all these things. Like, I can be so nostalgic about it. So almost imagine yourself in the future looking back at this present moment. Like, what is she or he going to be nostalgic about this present moment right now? I find that an interesting way to look at things. And that also reminds me of, I can't remember what I was listening to, but someone talking about parenting. Like, when you get frustrated being a parent, I mean, there's a lot of times when you're really exhausted, right? And you're just like waiting for bedtime, which always makes me so sad, because I know in my heart I'm going to miss these moments. But this connects to that. This person said, whenever you're feeling frustrated as a parent, imagine that you have a time machine in your older self, like in your 80s or 90s or whatever, is coming back to this moment, and how much you would cherish that moment in your older years. And again, that gives me full body chills just thinking about that. That is such a beautiful way to look at any moment in your life, not even just parenting. Of course, we want to freeze this time and space with our cute little babies because they grow up so fast. But with any moment in your life, imagine your future self coming back in and seeing what you're doing. That's just going to give you a whole new lens and a whole new appreciation for that moment. That's what it boils down to with living in alignment and living your best life and all the things, right? It's about the lens that you choose to see things through. And we always have the power to choose that lens that we see things through. So that's just one way you can kind of play around with that, is acting like your future self, coming back and looking at this present moment. But any way that helps you and serves you to get I hate to say better lens, but a lens that just feels better in this moment to look through your life. Okay, one last thing I want to riff on before I let you guys go. And that is another thing that Karen said in her podcast episode. Oh my gosh, seriously, such a golden episode. But she said one of the principles that rules her life is that there's always more. I need to hear that one on the reg, because I think that's where a lot of my anxiousness comes from, is I feel like I'm running out of time. I don't know where that story is coming from. Like, I have a scarcity of time, which time is a whole other thing that is supposedly an illusion and we don't really understand. And that is beyond my mind at this point. But I can change my beliefs, right? Like, I can change my lens that I see time through. And what if I chose to believe that there's always more time? Like, for instance, with this RV trip, we want to go like 1,000 different places and we only have a finite amount of time in this next 6 months, right? But I still have the rest of my life to go and visit these places in an RV or maybe another vehicle or in another way at some time and space. I just feel like we really close ourselves off with that scarcity belief of there's only so much money or only so much time or only so much love or only so much whatever. What if we change that belief to there's always more? Like Karen said, more to give, more to receive, more to do, more time. It feels really good to change my lens to that belief. There's always more. There's always more time. And I'm going to do the best I can with this time and space, but there's always more time. And not to even mention another rabbit hole we could go down if you're thinking of time, like, okay, Lindsay, but you're only here for a certain amount of time. Yes, I agree. We're only here in this body, in this time and space, one time. But I truly believe we're here multiple times, maybe on different planes of reality too. So there's always more. There's always more. And that just feels really good to me and like a belief that's really going to serve me. All right, per usual, I feel like I'm kind of here, there, and everywhere with this episode. My hope is that this episode just gives you some tools you can use when you're feeling anxious or just kind of navigating the unknown or when mind stories come up. Know that we're all in this together. Every single one of us deals with this, deals with mind stories, deals with anxiety on some level, some more than others, but all of us, I think, deal with anxious thoughts. So know that you're not alone and know that there is absolutely nothing wrong with you. All right, my loves, that is all I have for you in this episode. Like I mentioned, you can go and check out that YouTube video. I will link it in the show notes for a yoga flow and meditation on dealing with anxious thoughts. Yoga and stretching and movement and meditation have been profoundly useful for me in this journey. If you know anyone that could find this message useful, please share the podcast with anyone that you think needs to hear this message. You can also screenshot it and share it with me on Instagram. You can tag me on your stories, sharing any takeaways that you have, or if you just feel called to share it. I love seeing that on Instagram. Subscribe if you are new here. We have new episodes every week, and I do have some interviews coming up. I know I keep saying that, but they're coming down the pipeline. It's been solo Lindsay here for a few weeks, but it also feels fun to have solo episodes because I just love coming on here and sharing my heart with all of you and connecting with all of you. So sending you all so much love, all of the highest vibes, and of course I will see you next week on Alignment Adventures.